Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm just going to wait a minute or two to get everyone settled, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, I guess we're good to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Julia with Inspira Advantage. We're an admissions consulting company dedicated to helping deserving students get into the school of their dreams. And I'm so happy you're able to join us today for our PA School webinar about everything you need to know about the application process. I'm really excited to get started with you guys. Just before we start, I'll let Taylor introduce herself in just a second. She's our panelist. But before we do that, I just want to jump into the agenda really quickly and touch on some housekeeping stuff. So we'll be talking about the role of PAs in healthcare, PA school application components and requirements, your timeline for a PA school application submission, tips to successfully navigating PA school applications, and we'll have a Q&A at the end of our webinar. So if you have any questions, we ask that you hang on to them until we get to the designated Q&A section, and then type them in the chat box, and Taylor will be able to answer those for you. Another thing I want to point out is that this webinar will be recorded. So if you missed something or if you just want to review, we will be sending this webinar out tomorrow morning. So stay tuned for that. All right, Taylor, if you want to introduce yourself, take it away.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Taylor Hayes. I am an Inspira Advantage counselor. I'm also an advanced practice provider, physician assistant at Emory Healthcare in Atlanta, Georgia, and I also serve as faculty at a local PA program. So I have a lot of experience in this area, and it's definitely something that I love to do. So again, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Okay, let's go ahead and get started discussing the role of PAs in healthcare.
Yeah, so PAs are really important to the healthcare system. We work alongside physicians and other healthcare professionals. We play a crucial role, particularly in healthcare accessibility and efficiency, and also high quality care and services. We are highly trained to perform a wide variety of medical evaluations and procedures under the supervision of a licensed medical doctor. And for PAs in particular, training can look anywhere between 2 to 2.5 years. So it's definitely condensed, it's fast paced, but you definitely become an efficient, high quality provider, which is really awesome.
Okay, let's touch on application components and requirements to get into PA school.
So many of you have probably heard of CASPA, which is the centralized application service that most PA programs in the United States use. This is a great service because it just allows you to streamline your application process for a prospective student. So instead of having to apply to multiple schools, you can just submit one application and that will take care of your application for most schools. The CASPA also collects just certain documents or certain things that they just need for the application process, including transcripts and test scores, any writing prompts like your personal statements and your letter of recommendations. And again, all this information is sent to your selected schools. And thereafter, CASPA or certain schools may have additional secondary or supplemental applications, and that will just be dependent on the school. So the 4 main parts of the CASPA application: first, you're going to have just your personal information, demographics, contact information, citizenship information, and much more. That's pretty easy and quick to fill out. I feel like for my students, it's often the part where they feel most accomplished because you can just get through it and then you're done. Next will be your academic history. So you're going to put in all of the coursework that you've completed and any standardized test information such as your GRE. You'll also likely put in your high school or the high schools that you've attended, and also any colleges. That will include the college for your 4-year degree, and then any colleges where you may have done some prerequisites. And all of your official transcripts will be uploaded to this part. Next will be your supporting information. So how I mentioned previously, some schools may require you to submit some supplemental materials, maybe some additional writing prompts or essays. And then you'll also upload your letters of recommendation, any pertinent experiences and achievements. And then finally, your application fee. So CASPA comes with a $185 application fee for the first program that you apply for. And then any subsequent programs that you apply for will be a fee of $61. So in terms of your education and prerequisites, all PA schools will require a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution. And then the mandatory prerequisites thereafter will vary dependent on the school. So it's very important to kind of get a working list of the schools that you're interested in and look to see if you have your prerequisites in line with what they require. So you'll have, so some of the few that you will likely see will be anatomy and physiology with lab, general biology with a lab, general chemistry with lab, organic chemistry with lab, biochemistry, microbiology with the lab, statistics, psychology, and medical terminology. And again, this is not an exhaustive list, and this does not mean that every single school will require all of these courses, but most schools will require the majority, and it's definitely good to look at the school that you are interested in to see if these courses apply to you.
So does this mean that you can major in anything as long as you have these prerequisites?
It does mean that, and I think that is probably one of the coolest things about being a PA. Your admissions committee, they really want to see someone who has interest outside of just being a PA. They want to see your hobbies. They want to see the things that you're interested in. I know people who went, the accounting route or maybe the engineering route as an undergrad, and then for various reasons and life experiences, they decided to pursue PA.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Aya, for letting me know that you guys cannot hear me. Appreciate that. We're all over the place here. But thank you for, Taylor, I think she's back. I hope she's back.
Oh, okay. I was like, I got lost. Sorry about that, guys. Was I the only one that got kicked out?
No, I was talking, but then I was on mute, clearly. So if you want to pick up where you left off, that would be wonderful. Sorry, guys.
Okay, perfect. No, it's okay. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. So just make sure that when you're going through your application process, make sure that the coursework that you've done aligns with all of this. And in addition to that, that's what we were talking about with just having different careers. PA schools like to see that you have different career options. It shows that you're just diverse, and it also shows that you're flexible and adaptable to change. And having kind of interest in outlets outside of PA school, I think really helps you to become a good clinician, and also helps you to not get so burnt out when things get difficult. You actually have other things that you're interested in. So PA admissions committees, they love to see that stuff.
Cool. And I think there's something to be said also. I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but like, let's say if you go throughout your bachelor's degree and you find out that your major isn't really something that you're passionate in, you're still not stuck. You can still kind of pursue your interest, like going to PA school, which is awesome.
Exactly. In terms of GPA, so a good GPA in general for PA schools typically considered around 3.0 or higher. However, nowadays, especially with the PA profession getting so competitive, PA schools are starting to increase their GPA requirement to make sure that they are getting a good pool of applicants. So a lot of schools that you will see are starting to kind of raise their bar to a minimum of 3.5. And again, it's important to check with that particular PA program that you're applying to make sure that your GPA falls in line with that. Standardized test. So the biggest one that you will see or that will be required by most PA programs will be your GRE. And that is your graduate record examination. And many PA programs are going to require that as part of the application process. It's used as a standardized measure to kind of measure your abilities and helps admissions committees compare applicants on a level playing field. And in general, most schools are going to be looking for at least a total.
Oh no, Taylor, I think we might have lost you again. We'll wait a couple minutes. Oh, Taylor, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good. You froze for a second, so.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. So the total combined score will be at least 300 for your verbal and quantitative. I will say that I've noticed within the past couple of years, a lot of schools are starting to recognize that your standardized tests are not the only way to determine.
Oh no. Oops. Sorry, Taylor, you keep cutting in and out. Could you just repeat what you said about how the standardized?
Yes. So are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you now. I think you were just kind of cutting in and out.
Okay, let me see if I can, hold on. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer to here. Actually, I don't know why it's doing that. But yeah, so a lot of schools are starting to or in addition to GRE, they're also starting to
Sorry, everybody. I think there's just a little bit of technical difficulties.
think on the fly, seeing your judgment and your ethics and your professionalism. And it's a really, really cool test. It's almost like a very hyped up like personality test, I would say. But you will start to see, in addition to the GRE, schools starting to require this CASPER test. So if you see that, be mindful that that is what they are looking for. And I think it's great because, again, schools are starting to realize that it's not always
Hey, Taylor, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, you were cutting out again.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I see something in the chat of logging onto the webinar by calling into the meeting. Is it possible for me to call into the meeting?
Unfortunately, I don't think it's possible, but maybe, do you mind trying logging in and like leaving the room and then coming back again? Yeah, okay, I think she heard me. Apologies, everyone, for the technical difficulties. I appreciate you still being with us. Okay, I can hear you. I think we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm so good. Sorry. I don't normally have these issues. I don't know quite what's going on. Let's see. Did we get through the CASPER piece?
So I'm not sure how like everybody else's, like if it cut off for everybody else, but I think it cut off for me in the middle when you were talking about like the GRE, like the test or whatever. I'm wondering maybe you can just read the slide again because I think it cut out in different parts.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. So most schools at this point are requiring a GRE, which is a standardized test similar to your SAT, your ACT, the MCAT. And this is required by most schools. And it basically is just a standardized measure of your abilities, and it helps admissions committees compare your application on a level playing field. For most schools, their minimum combined GRE score to make you competitive will be 300, and that will be for your verbal and your quantitative. In addition to this standardized test, I've also seen PA schools or more PA schools starting to look less at standardized tests and kind of look more at your soft skills and your personality and your ability to kind of think on the fly. That test is called your Casper test. And so you'll start to see some schools use that, or they may require that for you. And it's basically just a two-part test. There's a verbal component and a written component, where you will kind of go through various scenarios and talk about how you would respond in those scenarios. So I really like that schools are starting to do this combination of the standardized and the more soft skills test, because I think that really helps admissions committees see just how well-rounded you are as an applicant. And it really shows how well you will end up being working with patients, and that's really cool. Your clinical experience. So this is huge. Most schools nowadays are looking for some degree of healthcare experience, whether you worked as an MA or a medical assistant, an athletic trainer, a dietitian, just various experiences working with patients. And that can be either paid work or unpaid work. It's very important to look at the PA schools and see what their criteria are, because some will be very big on having, this paid experience, whereas others will be okay with the shadowing and the volunteering work. But some of your more competitive schools will have like a minimum hour requirement, and that could be upwards of 2,000 or 3,000 hours, whereas other schools may have no minimum requirement. Your letters of recommendation. So these letters will come from people who know you very well. It can be anywhere between 2 to 3 letters of recommendation. And I would encourage you guys to really start thinking about this stuff now, even if you're not planning to apply for like 2 years from now. If there are people in your life that, a mentor or whoever it may be, but someone that's actually seen you kind of walk through this process, these will be great people to ask for a letter of recommendation. So it can come from a healthcare professional like a doctor or a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner that you've worked with. And it can also come from your professors or your academic advisors, just anyone that can give you a good recommendation and can really vouch for your growth as a future clinician. Your personal statement. So one of my favorite things, and in general, I think this is the thing that can kind of make it or break it, because you can imagine that PA schools are receiving hundreds and thousands of applicants, and the personal statement is one of the key things that sets you apart from other people. So your personal statement is critical to the success of your application. It's typically a one-page essay, and schools will have, or the CASP will typically, I think it's about 1,500 words, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. And it basically just gives you the opportunity to just showcase your unique qualities, experiences, and motivations. And overall, it's a chance to make a strong first impression, like I said, to kind of differentiate yourself from the other applicants. And I really like it. I'm kind of one who likes to evoke a lot of emotion. If I make an admissions committee person cry a little bit from hearing my story, I think it's perfect. But again, it's just they want to be able to see your personality and your abilities just jump off the page. And when they see that, that makes them want to look at your application more. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's almost like writing a story or a script for a movie where you really want somebody to just kind of like, you want to grab their attention, you want to keep hold of it. And then that's going to get them to continue to look at your application and call you in for an interview to get to know you more.
Okay, let's touch on the timeline for PA school application submission.
Perfect. So timeline can vary dependent on the school. In general, CASPA or most programs will open up their application cycle through CASPA anywhere between late April or early May. And then the deadline for submission typically falls between September and December of that same year. So for example, this year CASPA opened, I believe, April 25th of 2024. And for most schools, the submission deadline will be between September and December of this year. It's important to check the specific deadlines for your programs that you're interested in because their deadlines will vary. And you also want to make sure that you have enough time to prepare and submit your application materials. Again, in addition to CASPA, a lot of these schools are also requiring supplemental or secondary applications. And so those will require additional essays or maybe additional paperwork or documents that you have to complete. So again, you want to know those deadlines so that you can actually know or kind of pace yourself and make sure that you're getting things done on time. And then finally, some programs have rolling admissions. And what that basically means is that your application will be viewed as it comes in. So this is another reason to kind of be proactive in your approach to the application process, because if you're prepared and ready to go come April 25th, when the application opens, you can go ahead and start submitting your materials then. And then you submit your application early, and then that program that's doing rolling admissions, they'll look at your application as it comes in. And that also makes it more likely that your application will be viewed and that you'll be invited for an interview.
Okay, I think this is the one that everyone's been waiting for. Tips to successfully navigating PA school application.
Yes, so a lot of things, and some things that we've kind of already touched on, but we'll kind of deep dive a little bit more. So first, you want to do your research, researching the different programs and their requirements and making sure that you meet the minimum qualifications for each program. Going through this process is difficult, and the last thing you want to do is go through the entire process of paying the application fee and doing all these essays and realizing that, oh, I'm missing this course, or my GPA is just under the cutoff, whatever it may be. I highly recommend for all of my students, I recommend just creating almost like a spreadsheet of all of the schools that you're interested in. And then you have a section for the school's mission and values, their minimum GPA requirement, the coursework that's required, the location, the tuition cost. Make a spreadsheet of all of that so you can actually see where you fall and be able to see what schools you like the most. What are the pros and cons, things like that. It really helps to put everything on a spreadsheet, and it also keeps you organized. The next thing is gaining experience. I would say it was definitely difficult during the COVID-19 era to find that experience, because a lot of hospitals or clinics just weren't allowing people to shadow or volunteer. That is lighting up now. And so if there are people that you know, or maybe even people that you know of, start networking, start asking them, say, hey, I'm interested in this. Could I spend a couple of hours with you once a week just to see what you do? And I would recommend kind of reaching out to people in different fields. Maybe you think you're interested in pediatrics, but hey, go shadow someone in the emergency room, go shadow someone in like a outpatient primary care clinic. You'll start to realize that you like a lot of different things. And that also helps with your application to show that you had these diverse experiences. So you can reach out to a medical assistant, an EMT or paramedic, a scribe, PAs, physicians, nurse practitioners, just anyone that will let you in the door. I would say take the opportunity, because it'll probably be a good one. And then finally, start early. I have found that my students who start months in advance of the CASPA application opening, they are the most prepared, and they also feel the most confident. They don't feel as anxious going through the application process because they put in the work to get things done. So you have all your documents together, you have your letter of recommendations together, you've done all your standardized tests, you've put in all your transcript information or requested that information so that you can just very easily and quickly put it in your CASPA. So I think with all three of these bullet points, I think the biggest thing is just being prepared and being proactive and taking the initiative. I think if you do those things, this CASPA and PA admissions process is often pretty smooth. Next, writing a strong personal statement. Like I said previously, this is the thing that will set you apart, because it's not just numbers. It's not so objective. There's a lot of just subjection within this part of your application. And so you really want to be able to show your passion, show your experiences. What made you even know that, PAs were a thing? What made you realize that you love caring for patients? We want to see those stories so that we can get to know you. You want to prepare for your interview. I highly recommend pairing up with someone, maybe an unbiased opinion, someone that can really tell you the truth and be candid with you about your performance. Pair up with that person and go over interview questions. You can even Google just general interview questions to just practice, and then also Google just questions specific to medical education. I will also say, just as a tip for interviews, many schools are starting to transition away from your more traditional interview process where you maybe sit in front of a panel of application or admissions committee members, and they're kind of moving away from that and doing what we call these multiple mini interviews. And so basically the process looks like you're kind of in this you're given a scenario, and you maybe only have about 5 minutes to answer the scenario. And it's similar to the Casper, where they're trying to see, what is your judgment, your professionalism? Are you able to think quickly and on your feet? And you'll go through multiple of those. And then there will be like a separate time to, speak individually to a committee or whoever it may be. But the multiple mini interviews, if you just Google MMI, it'll pop up. But that has been shown to be very effective because, again, you're not looking so much at the numbers or the hard data. You're actually able to see how applicants and prospective students, how they think and how they may end up being as a clinician. And then finally, stay organized. Like we said, create your spreadsheet. I am very type A. Most PAs are pretty type A, and it's okay if you're not, but for the purposes of your application process, you definitely want to have a spreadsheet. Keep your documents on track. And again, this will just help you know what you need, what you're missing, and make sure that you are staying on top of your timeline to get your materials and your documents submitted in a timely fashion.
Okay, amazing. Thanks so much, Taylor. So we've reached the Q&A section. So if you have any questions for Taylor, just type them in the chat box below. But I was hoping that you could kind of touch on the MMI interview. I know we just talked about it, but I'm curious, would you study for an MMI interview the same way you would study for a traditional interview?
That is a really good question. I think you can take a similar approach, just in terms of having kind of just some general information or general thoughts in mind. But the multiple mini interviews, they're interesting because they're very like specific and tailored information. I remember in interviews that I've done recently, we've had a lot of case scenarios regarding like ethics and professionalism. So maybe it's a case that's talking about elder abuse. How do you handle that? What do you do? Do you know your state laws? Things like that. So it's kind of like a multi-level question, and it's very complex. And so I wouldn't say it's something to really be, stressed or worried about. But I think it's definitely something where you kind of just have to think about, well, how do I normally just handle like, my regular life circumstances when I experience a conflict in my life, or when I experience something difficult? How would I naturally react? And I think if you think of it that way, just kind of use your day-to-day experiences and kind of process, take kind of a stepwise approach to how you would process those things. I think that will inevitably prepare you for your multiple mini interviews when they come up.
Amazing. Thanks for answering that for us. Question about GPA requirements. If you are under GPA requirements and you want to kind of still apply to PA school, is it possible to really use your personal statement as a way to explain why your GPA is not at the level that it should be, and use that as a way to kind of still get accepted? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I would say yes. And this is where you kind of have to read the fine print. There are some schools that will say, preferred GPA 3.5, which means really, probably shouldn't apply if your GPA is lower. But there are some other language that you may see that, recommended, maybe that could be a word, like recommended 3.5. And when I see something like that, that kind of tells me that, yes, that's their ideal, but they will look at you holistically. They'll look at your personal statement. They'll look at your coursework. They'll look at your experiences. And there's actually a section on on CASPA, where specific to the COVID-19 pandemic, and I don't know how long it will be here or as part of the application, but recently there's been a specific question about the COVID-19 pandemic and how that affected you, whether that affected your grades or whether that affected your ability to find healthcare experience. I really like that piece because you kind of get the opportunity to just explain the difficulties. And you can explain, hey, I had a death in the family during the semester, and this is why, my GPA dropped. life happens, and we understand that. A lot of schools also, like with their secondary supplemental applications, they will also have a section where you can kind of explain maybe having a lower GPA or a lower test score somewhere. So all that to say, schools are starting to realize that your GPA and your scores are not always they don't always fall directly in line with how good of a clinician you're going to be. I will admit I failed OChem when I was an undergrad. And when I was in PA school, I was class president. I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. I graduated with highest honors. And I'm a faculty member now. So all that to say, like, me failing OChem did not interfere with my ability to get into a top PA program. I went to a top 5 PA program. So it didn't interfere with my abilities because I was able to showcase other attributes that the PA admissions committee felt were more important for quality patient care.
I love that. Well, congrats on bouncing back from that. That's awesome.
The coursework is hard, but you can do it. And I think that's what PA schools, they want to see that you're resilient. If you've had a hard time, if you had difficulties, they want to be able to see, hey, maybe you got knocked down, but you know how to pick yourself up and you know how to work through it and you know how to learn and do better next time.
I love that. And I think that's the perfect note to end off of. So thank you so much, Taylor. Much appreciated. Your insights were awesome. I know I learned a lot and I hope everybody did too. Just want to clarify again that we will be sending this webinar out if you want to review again. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us and we hope to see you at the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.